We're doing the presentation in English because of Javed. He can do it in Greek as well. I don't know if you would like that or prefer a Greek presentation. No?
Ja, ik begrijp beter dan kan ik praten. Dus.
Yeah, so then we do it in English. And well, what we will be presenting today are, in fact, three things. First is that we believe in one trend, one big trend, and that is the integration of online and offline media, which is happening right now. The second one is the importance of the mobile. That is the only thing that we take with us, which is very close to us, which we will use every day, at every moment, because it's at our disposal. And in the future it will be, of course, a chip, and we will put our ear or nose or whatever to buy a product. But at this moment it's the mobile, and probably will be the tablet. And we believe in a new research instrument which is called the virtual cave. And we will combine those three in one presentation today. I'm Dr. Marnix, this is Dr. Javed, and we are all kinds of doctors working at not the NT-HV or the whatever, it's pronounced like this. It's spelled 6 times wrong in the brochure, but it doesn't matter. You probably will remember it right now. And we work at the Academy of Media and Digital Entertainment. And we're all there together, and we're doing all kinds of research concerning new media and new media theories, and making them available for the industry. But before I continue, I have some of the questions I have for you. Who of you owns a smartphone? Please raise your hand. So that's a lot. And we've already heard that this is the new way of doing your shopping. Who of you owns a tablet? Who brought your tablet right here? So that's a lot. Every time we do a presentation, it becomes more. Who of you tried to be on Twitter today? Did it work? No, it didn't work. So now we start all our presentations normally by, please put on your mobile phones because we want to be on Twitter. But it won't happen today. So what we're trying to do now is to establish, what kind of information are you willing to give? So if I ask you, who's very happy about his or her sex life? Please raise your finger. Oh. So that's a lot of fingers, by the way. So you're willing to give me a lot of information. On the other hand, you're not willing to give it to me when I ask you. So we try to do a lot of new research by observing, to make observations, to see what you're doing. And that's the other thing that we're doing right now. So we combine that, and we're trying to look at this moment in this presentation about shopping. How does shopping proceed? What are people doing? And normally, I don't know how it goes with you, but when we are shopping, you're just, in a kind of hurry. You're in the retail shop, trying to do your groceries, putting all the things in. I have 2 kids. I don't know if you have kids, but they're trying to do also all kinds of things in my basket. All kinds of candy, because Daddy has a lot of candy in the store. I know, but don't put it in my basket. So I'm very busy controlling everything and to control my own shopping behavior, and I'm not in control. And now we have a new thing. It's the mobile. And wouldn't it be nice if I was standing in front of a shop and I'm trying to buy a television? Who of you have bought a television or a DVD player the last month? Okay, 1, 2. So maybe you can understand. I was in front of the shop and I was trying to get my DVD player. And a lot of choices. And I was like, And I want to pick up one of the DVD players. And it would be nice at that moment my mobile phone would ring, or my smartphone. And my smartphone would say, loser, take the other one, it's cheaper. That would be nice. And my smartphone can say loser to me. And programmed it. So then I get the message of, loser, don't buy that one, buy this one because it's cheaper, or it's better. Or if you buy this one, you get a discount on another product. That would be nice. Who would like such a thing? Nobody. A few. Depends on the product, maybe. So that's the other story. It would be nice if you got on stage, on your shopping experience, getting maybe an offer or some feedback at the moment you're buying, and the feedback, the offer that you want. On the other hand, you don't want to be disturbing your buying process. So who's going to explain or gets your permission to give that information at that time. That's what we would like to research and what we're doing right now. And we're doing that with a few partners. And we want to, like, one of the partners is POPAI. We want to thank them because they give us the insights how the industry works. And we need that industry insight, you know, to make the theory applicable for you. And with all those partners, at this moment, we're trying to do a research concerning a virtual cave. Who of you have done research in a virtual cave? Nobody. One. Who has heard of a virtual cave before? One or two. So we're going to explain a little bit about how this virtual cave works. And we're doing that with a lot of partners. In the virtual cave, it's possible to build every environment you want. It could be your own living room. It could be your own store. It could be your competitor's store. It could be a street. It could be an environment you live in. In the end, we want to we want to build every environment possible for you to do your research in. Because that environment, we want to do our studies. We want to see whether the environment that we build in can say something about the real world and your environment. So we build this environment, and it consists of 4 background projection screens in which we simulate a 360 degrees panoramic view in which you can walk freely as you want, as if you were in a supermarket, or as if you were in your own living room. And in that place, you can do your observations. We can see where people are looking at. We can do all kinds of observational research, such as feelings about where people are, the heart rates, all biometric measurements we can do in this cave. And as such, we can observe, and you can observe as well, where people are looking, what they are doing at the moment they are shopping their normal way. Or in the living room, looking from screen to see while watching commercials, for instance. How does it work? So we build different kinds of worlds, and in this world, we try to connect with the real life media that you're using now, that you're carrying at this moment with you, like your mobile phone, like your tablet. And we put you in this cave. And from this cave, you can see the environment you have built, or what you want to show to that consumer. And the consumer can freely walk through this environment, and he can sit and look and see whatever he wants to do. So the environment moves with him. So we're trying to build as close as possible the real environment. However, with the possibilities to change everything that we want, or that you want. So it works like you're standing in this room, and when you take a step and you start to walk through this shop, or in your room, or you can go left, or you can go down, and everything will move with you. So in that environment, we're going to do all kinds of research, and we'll show it to you in a movie. The movie we're going to show you is this virtual supermarket we've built. And the virtual supermarket is, like any supermarket you will find in the Netherlands. And in the supermarket, we place all kinds of products, real products, only virtual. And we can change those products into new products, new concepts, or new offerings. And as you can see, it's all with real photographic imagery. So you could also send us your room, or pictures of your living room, or your street, and we will build that environment. It's also in that store, you can also add things that you would normally see in a normal store as well, like background music, or other people walking, or in fact, something like narrowcasting, or whatever you have that you want to put in that cave. At this moment, of course, we're still trying to fill and to make those worlds better and to complete them as strongly as possible. And we will show you some of the examples of what some of the environments we already built. I hope it's working. trying to do in this cave, and I hope you get an impression of how this cave looks, is that we're now starting to do some of the research with POPAI and the other partners concerning supermarket behavior. And what we want to find out is something which is, available at this moment for you as well, because all of you retailers know that you would like to reach the consumer at the moment he's trying to do his buying, wants to try to buy his product. At that moment, it would be nice if you could influence him. And so what we're trying to do is, how can we optimize our communication? How can we optimize our media by taking into account the environment he's in at that moment? And the environment could be the environment as a whole, but could also be a shelf, could also be the product. And something about that research, about taking into account the context in which the consumer is, and you already at this moment being, can reach that person by knowing where he is. The technology is that far at this moment. Would of course like to know whether it will work. Would my communication be more effective? Would people be more willing to look at the offer when it's nearby and close by, because they are placed within that product? And for that research, Jafet will tell you how it went.
Thanks, Manex. Yeah, in this slide, actually, you see another environment that we're busy building with, and that's a living room environment. Also, in the video clip, you saw different environments, and it shows, I think, also the possibilities that can emerge from such a virtual cave. So you saw even a racing game shortly, but you also saw the supermarket, and now we're busy actually building a living room. So if I had to position what we're doing, methodologically speaking, there are two types, and if I had to put methodology in black and white, there are two types of studies. There are laboratory studies and field test studies. And in lab studies, actually, you can control things a lot, so it would be useful, for example, for usability-related studies, if you're interested in testing your mobile phone app, for example. However, when it comes to including context and giving like a richer and more immersive experience to your users, then this would be lagging behind. And then always comes, obviously, the question of ecologically validity, of whether your finding is ecologically valid. On the other hand, you'd have, as I mentioned, field studies where you would give the mobile phone app, for example, to your user and ask him or her to go to an actual supermarket, where obviously the actual context there exists. However, we see from literature that these are quite difficult to conduct with all sorts of logistical and technical challenges, and it's actually also quite difficult to observe, which results to actually having very few participants participating in your research, and which results to basically having qualitative results rather than true experimental results. So the way we position our methodology is somewhere in between these two. In the literature you see that what we're doing is actually we're augmenting virtuality. So instead of having a real environment and augmenting it with a virtual, we have a virtual environment and we're augmenting it with a real object. So in other words, you can bring your mobile phone in our virtual world and it's going to communicate and exchange information with that virtual world. So we do have then context, obviously up to an extent, we can manipulate context. But some advantages is that we can invite a large number of participants and obviously can include all sorts of real products like mobile phones, smartphones, tablets, and even other interaction devices that probably do not exist even nowadays. And we can also observe behavior. So going a little bit more into the research that we are doing, if you think about what's the ultimate goal of context-aware apps and location-based apps, and that's going to be the studies that I'm going to describe, the ultimate goal is to provide actually added value to the user, which raises the question how now to evaluate the user's experience while taking context into account. And we saw that we have this black and white divide between lab and field studies, and we're positioning ourselves somewhere in the middle. So the last year we have actually conducted 3 studies in the virtual cave. It was on the virtual supermarket, where we had asked participants, we gave participants an Android phone, and the Android phone would actually trigger ads based on their location. So first we did a first study to see whether we see significant results, whether it makes a difference to people when they experience that environment. So it was a smaller scale study with 27 participants and a second study with a much larger study with 70 participants. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to discuss the third study. Our dependent variable, in other words, what we were interested in measuring was the perceived intrusiveness of a mobile ad, because we know that perceived intrusiveness leads to ad irritation, and we know that high values of ad irritation would lead to a high probability of ad avoidance. So that's probably not what you want. So in study one, we had two groups of people. We had a between subjects design. Whereas in group one, both of them saw the same ad. It was about a chewing gum product. And both of them, actually in both cases, it was triggered within half a meter between a certain shelf. Now group one saw the chewing gum ad on their mobile phone while they were close to the soup shelves of our virtual supermarket. And the second group, they saw the chewing gum ad while at the counter where the chewing gums were actually placed, where the actual product was placed. As I said, we were interested in measuring the perceived intrusiveness of the mobile ad, and we also controlled for product involvement and attitudes towards advertisement in general. And what we see, even with that small sample, we saw a significant actually difference in terms of in perceived intrusiveness of that ad. So in other words, the location congruent ad was perceived as less intrusive. And we would hypothesize then that it would be, the message would be also more accepted compared to the location incongruent ad. Now, in study two, one thing that we thought is that we might have an effect that we did not control. As I mentioned, the second group saw the chewing gum ad while at the counter. And we thought that the counter actually might have an effect. Because think about it, you are standing at the counter, you finished your shopping, so you might be kind of relaxed. Also in terms of an experiment, you kind of finish your task in the experiment. So you might actually feel less irritated, the ad might feel less intrusive. So we made it more difficult for ourselves in our second study. And what we did is we showed, in this case, a mobile ad of a soup, but instead of presenting that ad on a different shelf, we presented that ad again in two groups. There were larger groups, and we presented that ad at the same shelf. Only what we did is by one click, we changed the products that people saw on the shelf. So for group one, it was a location congruent ad. In other words, they saw a soup ad on their phone, and they were watching soups at the shelf. And in the second group, they saw a soup ad on their mobile phone, but they saw meal mixes on the shelf, which also, I think, shows the advantage of having such a virtual store. So again, we control for the same variables, and again, we had the same dependent variable, and we see actually the same results with study one. In other words, the location congruent ad, so the location-based ad, was felt as statistically significant, less intrusive than the location incongruent ad. And this study in detail we're presenting at the conference this May in Austin, Texas. So if I had to conclude our work is, first of all, we can conclude based on these two studies that location does positively affect perceived intrusiveness of mobile ads, and we hypothesize, and therefore it adds value. And we have also, I think, more importantly, demonstrated a virtual environment where user experience research of mobile context-aware systems can be performed. Adjustments of the virtual environment and context would be done much easier and would be controllable and faster compared to a real setting. I think you can appreciate that advantage. And obviously we can reproduce with the exact same conditions our studies and therefore see whether we find reliable and varied results. Now currently we're busy filling the supermarket, the virtual supermarket. We've calculated we need approximately 20,000 products. We have approximately 1/3 filled in because these are real products that we're actually modeling. We have also, now we track the body and of our participants, so you can actually walk freely without any assistance. And the virtual environment will collect the perspective and give you the feeling that you are actually walking inside the virtual supermarket, as you saw in the video. And we're interested also in behavioral measurement. So, for example, the log of the path, the navigation path that somebody took, or other behavioral measurements rather than questions. We also, on the long term, we also want to enable people to interact with products, to actually take a virtual product and maybe turn it around and see some information. And we're interested also in testing apps, ads, brands, and different products. So in that sense, we have creation and retail diversity. On the longer term, we're also interested in including the social context, which is missing right now. In other words, having also other virtual people shopping in the virtual supermarket. We're actually very close into having a more complete phone app. So in the studies that I presented, it was, we just served the push ad on the mobile phone, whereas now, very soon actually our participants will have the opportunity to take a snap, use the camera of the phone and shop products. And yeah, by including also personalization profiles, we can do much more sophisticated research. And we're also very interested in the external validity of our studies. In other words, we're interested in replicating the study that we did on a real supermarket, and we're actually busy with that as we speak. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions, I guess we can take it on the break.